The Indianapolis Colts, once belonging to a great city that actually cared about their football team, but unfortunately their owner didn't really care about them. The story about the Colts is way back in the 1940s when they were actually part of the All American Football Conference with Cleveland and San Francisco, among others. The Colts came to Baltimore in 1950 and brought a tradition of winning, especially with quarterbacks such as Johnny Unitas, Earl Morrall, and such players as Bubba Ray Smith, a lot of Colt, Art Donovan, Alan Amici. Yeah, I'm blanking on a lot of former Colts superstars. Big Daddy Lipscomb. So anyway, the Baltimore Colts were pretty much darlings of the NFL for many years in the 50s and 60s, but ceded control to the Packers, if you will. The Colts have always been jinxed, mostly in Baltimore. Of course, the biggest way of choking was in 1968 when they won the NFL title, despite Johnny Unitas being hurt and Earl Morrall having to take over the reins. The Colts finished 13-1. It was a 14-game season in the NFL at that time. Colts easily won the NFL title, so now they would be taking on the upstart New York Jets in Super Bowl III at the Orange Bowl in Miami. Joe Namath made his famous guarantee, and the Jets won, mostly on the ground game. It wasn't Namath who did anything special. The Jets defeat the Colts 16-7, despite the fact that the Jets were 18-point underdogs at that game. The big story was about Earl Morrall starting that Super Bowl, and they didn't put Johnny Unitas in when they needed to. And of course, that picture of Jimmy Orr flailing his hands, open in the end zone, that could have helped the Colts win the Super Bowl. The Baltimore Colts did get their brass ring, if you will, in 1971 when they basically beat Dallas in one of the worst Super Bowls of all time for turnovers. The Colts managed to win 16-13 on a Jim O'Brien last-second field goal. The Baltimore Colts were decent. Unfortunately, Unitas faded into obscurity and Don Shula left for Miami. The Colts did have a few decent chances, but in 1975, despite starting 1-3, the Colts actually went to the playoffs and actually had a home playoff game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Sadly, though, the Steelers easily took care of the Colts. Big brass steel curtain, indeed. In fact, a fan actually crashed his small biplane into the stadium. Silver deck after the game. So anyway, the Colts tried as they might had a few chances at the playoffs, but in 1977 it was the ghost to the post, not Don Casper, Dave Casper's amazing catch to force overtime against the Colts for the Oakland Raiders, and the Raiders winning in double overtime. Another one to Casper. Burt Jones was fine, but unfortunately his team just choked at playoff time, and Baltimore was really not that well known. So anyway, Baltimore had turmoil, especially in 1982 when they went through the 9-game strike-shortened season with 8 losses and a tie. Can't believe they even got a tie out of it. They thought Arch Schlichter was going to be their best nose quarterback. The quarterback from Ohio State who basically passed the ball a lot. Ohio State was known for their running game. Unfortunately for Schlichter, he had a gambling habit through college, and it showed in the pros. Basically, he was not looking at plays. He was just looking at the scoreboard more often than not. Schlichter, unfortunately, gambled a ton of money, including his signing bonus, his rookie signing bonus. Schlichter's life was just basically gone for shit. Basically, he was banned from the NFL for his gambling. He couldn't keep it straight. He went to the Arena Football League to help, but other than that, it just didn't work out for Schlichter. Colts needed another quarterback, and they got their quarterback. Well, even though Mike Pagel tried to help the Colts as much as he can, they went for John Elway. But the problem was twofold for the Colts. Elway didn't think Baltimore was worthy of having a football team because they basically didn't have a winning attitude. And B, most important of all that people forget, is that the Colts coach ended up being Frank Kush, who used to coach Arizona State. And unfortunately, Frank Kush is well known in Arizona State circles as being a piece of shit, if you will. And with John Elway and his father Jack at Stanford, John being the quarterback, Jack being the coach at Stanford, they know from their Pac-10 brethren that Arizona State really got lucky when Frank Kush left the team because, he really hurt some players. Elway used his minor league baseball career with the Yankees as leverage, and the Colts caved in. They did draft him, but they traded him to Denver for Chris Hinton, among others. Or quarterback Mark Herman. I think Mark Herman went the other way to to Baltimore. The Colts just had a terrible year. That ended up being the final year of the Baltimore Colts because their owner Robert Irsay basically didn't think it was profitable for the team. He was fielding multiple offers to move the Colts, especially to Phoenix, among others. But Irsay was told to keep the team in Baltimore. Irsay agreed. But the next day, under the cover of night, they packed all their Baltimore Colts stuff and moved to Indianapolis because Indy used a stadium called the RCA Dome, or the Hoosier Dome, if you will, to basically try to pride themselves a football team in Midwestern America. Well, the heartland of America, if you will. The Colts used like 17 different routes to try to make sure that Baltimore didn't see anyone leave. A few people saw, but anyway, the problem was mostly because Baltimore refused to give the Colts a new stadium. Memorial Stadium was falling apart and all that, and sharing the Orioles was not a good move for the Colts. So practically, the Colts tried to get a new stadium. It would actually take 8 years after that, in 1992, for the Orioles to get a new stadium and not have to play at Memorial Stadium anymore, even though it was a nice stadium. So anyway, the Baltimore Colts were gone. Now became the Indianapolis Colts, and they didn't really have much of a history for the first decade and a bit. They did have Eric Dickerson in a trade from the Rams, but other than that, the Colts just didn't have anything in them. 94, they made a playoff push and failed. 95, they did much better. We'll talk about that in the what if. But anyway, the Indy Colts in the mid-90s weren't really that good after that, except for that one playoff push. But good news is that they got Peyton Manning with the first overall pick from Tennessee. Peyton Manning would be the key for things. I know Manning didn't have a good first season, but you know what? The Colts had some heart in it. And even though they traded Marshall Faulk to the Rams, the Colts did pretty well. Peyton would always do well in the playoffs if he wasn't facing Tom Brady. The Colts had a history of making bad moves. 2006 was supposed to be their best year. Well, 05, 06. I could easily have done that. But there's a reason why I'm doing the 95 team. The Colts were proclaimed as the best team around and would probably win the 2006 Super Bowl. Unfortunately, the Colts would falter to the Pittsburgh Steelers in the divisional round, mostly because they got a little too cocky, and Jerome Bettis was fantastic. The Colts did return a fumble at their goal line toward midfield, but unfortunately Mike Vanderjagt could not kick a field goal to tie the game, and the Steelers went on to win the Super Bowl. And others. Basically, the Colts had problems. However, the next season they actually got to the Super Bowl at the expense of the Patriots. And they took down the Chicago Bears, even though the Bears got an opening kick touchdown from Devin Hester. The Colts played their hearts out and won. 2010, they were supposed to win the Super Bowl 3 years later, but the Saints, poured on by civic pride, Drew Brees, and a good defense, stopped the Colts from winning. Stopped Peyton from winning his second Super Bowl ring with the Colts. And it was ironic that about New Orleans because, as people forget, New Orleans was where Archie Manning quarterback for many years. So anyway, Peyton Manning, that was cited. The Colts had problems. Peyton had a neck issue that couldn't get better, and the Colts had to release him because they didn't think he was coming back. Big mistake. Denver picked him up, and he won the Super Bowl with them in 2016 and retired. The Colts got lucky, if you will. They got Andrew Luck in the draft with their terrible pick after losing Peyton Manning. So they used Andrew Luck and his Stanford mentality. And it worked. The Colts did pretty well in the playoffs, especially that one game against the Kansas City Chiefs, I think it was 2014 in the wild card game, that they came back from 20 plus points down to win that game. Unfortunately for Colts fans, now they have to deal with Jacoby Brissett as quarterback because Andrew Luck retired abruptly during a preseason game, and the fans were just mad at him. So anyway, the Colts 95-96 season was a Cinderella run, if you will. The Colts shocked everyone by getting to the AFC title game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. If memory serves me right, I think they took down San Diego. I can't remember who they took down. Or was it? No, it was Kansas City. Because Lynn Elliott just sucked kicking field goals. So anyway, the Colts would play the Steelers at Three River Stadium for the title of the AFC, which would get them to the NFC, face the NFC winner in Tampa, Arizona, at Sun Devil Stadium. The only problem was that the Steelers kind of went controversially. Never mind that the Hail Mary attempt from Jim Harbaugh landed in Aaron Bailey's lap before it dropped to the turf. The real problem was that Cordell Stewart, who caught a touchdown pass from Neil O'Donnell, was out of bounds. Slash, as they called him, ran out the back of the end zone and should have been an ineligible receiver. But somehow he got in and got the touchdown. That was really kind of first down. And I owe it to the Colts something. So, the 95-96 Colts go to the Super Bowl to take on the 96 Cowboys. This will be obviously a one-game winner-take-all thing. So I'm just going to make it a little easier for me. Just a minute. There we go. All right. So, yeah, Colts and Cowboys, one game, winner take all. And first quarter. Just going to give you the first quarter stuff, which is kind of boring, if you will. Kerry Blanchard does get a 23-yard field goal, but the Colts screw up on first and goal at the 5-yard line. Chris Warren can't run the ball. Harbaugh couldn't run the ball either. But the second quarter was when things started taking a massive turn. Dallas, with the ball first in the second quarter, gets a nice play from Aikman to Jay Novacek. A 58-yard catch and run for Novacek to make it 7-3. But the Colts get one back. First and goal at the 4. Sean Dawkins gets a touchdown catch. And the extra point is good, 10-7. Chris Bonio, the Dallas kicker, hits one from 42 to tie the game at 10. Kerry Blanchard hits a 45-yard field goal with a minute 43 left in the second quarter to make it 13-10. But the fun didn't start there. After a blocked punt, the Colts had the ball at the 1-yard line, which Marshall Faulk easily scored a touchdown to make it 20-10 for the Colts. However, Dallas came roaring back with 1 minute left. They hit the drive that sent, I believe, Kevin Williams for a touchdown at the 2-yard line. So basically, Dallas knew they had to call timeout. And they did. They got the extra point to make it 20-17 Colts. But the third quarter was when things were that bad. Dallas had the ball first in the second half, and Chris Bonio with a 47-yard field goal to score. 20-20, and then basically, after a few dumb penalties by the Colts, on 2nd and 10, Williams comes down with another touchdown catch. It is 27-20. So basically, that was all there was to it until Blanchard hit a 47-yard field goal with 8:55 left in the game, making it 27-23. Dallas does a small drive and actually ends up with a Bonio 29 field goal to make it 30-23. The Colts have a bad 3-and-out. And then with a chance on 4th and 19, Jim Harbaugh overthrew Aaron Bailey for an incompletion. Game over. The Colts lose 30-23. So yet another what if goes by the wayside. Yeah, it was Kevin Williams. Emmitt Smith, the hero. Why? He didn't even score a touchdown. It should have been Kevin Williams. 2 touchdown catches. But Emmitt ran for 202 yards, basically close to Timmy Smith numbers from 1988 Super Bowl in real life. Falk 84 yards running. Not bad. Reception. Well, Harbaugh 12 for 24, 119 yards and a touchdown. Wayne Wilson came in and threw a 4-yard pass to Emmitt Smith. But anyway, Aikman 13 for 29, 183, 3 touchdowns and a pick that Ray Buchanan got. Legend and Bonio combined 6 for 6 on field goals, which was nice. But in the end, the Colts failed flat. I didn't think that the Colts could fuck it up, but they did. Miracles don't happen in Indianapolis.